Hello there, YouTube. Jens Davidson here once again, and we have taken the skillet down to bare iron yet another time. This is I'm kind of turning this skillet into a guinea pig for testing out different methods of cleaning the seasoning off, as well as different grits to prepare the surface with for seasoning. So this evening, I frankly think this is the best one yet. Um, I used my random orbit sander on this. It's a small Bosch random orbit sander, and the uniformity of surface finish is outstanding. It's got a nice scratch pattern in there, so that there's a lot of texture for the seasoning to adhere to. So the grit that I used on this is mind-blowing. It is 40 grit, extra coarse, ceramic. That's what we're looking at. And here's the, it's a Norton Pro Sand. I'm not sponsored by Norton. It'd be cool if I was sponsored by them someday, because, you know, I use a lot of their products. I really think they make some outstanding sandpaper and abrasives. But anyhow, I use this on my Bosch random orbit sander. It's a little electric job, and obviously wore ear protection. Really doesn't make a lot of dust, and within geez, like 5 minutes or less, I had the skillet as you see it now. Because the pad on the random orbit sander is a little bit on the hard side, it didn't conform to the contour of the edges all that well. It did somewhat, but I'm perfectly happy with how that turned out anyhow. There's a tiny bit of old seasoning left over on the walls at that transition from the bottom to the walls, but I'm okay with that. The bottom's what I'm mainly concerned with. So, figured I'd show you guys that. I'm going to re-season this yet again. So the way I've been doing this is I have been cycling how I treat the skillet. So turn the heat on, max burner, and then heat the skillet up. I obviously have an initial quart of oil on there, and I heat the skillet up until it's smoking very liberally, and then I apply oil on there, wait for the smoke to dissipate, put some more oil on there, wait for the smoke to dissipate, and after I do that a couple times, then I turn the burner off, let it cool down for about 30 seconds, and then I gently buff it with steel wool. And it's pretty fine steel wool. It's not really aggressive stuff. I don't think I have really aggressive stuff, but I probably would use it if I had it. And then after the steel wool, I turn the burner back on to max, and then I repeat that process. I apply oil, I wait until I start seeing really liberal smoke evolution, and then apply one or two more coats of oil, and then once the smoke starts dissipating, I cut the burner off and sort of let the hot spots and the cool spots equilibrate. And then after it's cooled for a minute or so, then I go back at it with the steel wool, and you kind of get the picture. It's a cycle that I've been doing, and I think it's been working out tremendously well. The theory is that the steel wool scratches up the uppermost layer of seasoning, doesn't take it off, or if it does, it only takes a fraction of it off, and then it prepares that surface for another layer of seasoning to be applied, so that that secondary layer of seasoning has something to hold on to. Whereas if the surface is, you know, polished, smooth, shiny seasoning on there, that secondary or subsequent layer of seasoning isn't going to stick as well. So I think it's really important to be buffing it in between with steel wool, and you're buffing it until the sheen goes from shiny to sort of a matte finish, and that's what I've been doing for a while, and it's been turning out tremendously well. You know, the walls of the skillet are not black. they're getting here, but obviously they don't heat up quite as fast, or quite as quickly I should say, as the bottom does. And also I've been kind of moving the skillet around so that the burner is closer to the wall, and try to get a little bit of heat to come up on top of the walls of the skillet. Overall, I'm tremendously happy with how this has turned out. I'm very, very confident this is going to be a solid finish. Hugely confident in this one. I think this is hands down the best attempt yet. Another thing that I've kind of noticed, I think it's pretty important to be fast about applying the seasoning. Don't just lollygag around on there and take your sweet time, because as you're putting oil on, it's trying to dry out, not only on the skillet itself, but also on the paper towel, and it's going to kind of get gummy, and it won't be as easy to move around, so you might not have as uniform of a surface as you originally wanted. Alright, so that's kind of one hot application of oil. I have a saucer over here. I don't think that's in frame, but I've got a small saucer with the flaxseed oil in there. And I'm just gently dipping the rag in there. I found out the hard way that, what I was doing before was I was taking the rag, putting it on top of the mouth of the flaxseed oil bottle, inverting it to get oil on here, and yeah, not a good idea. The paper towel was so hot that it was melting the plastic mouth of the flaxseed oil bottle. So, yeah, not a good move. So I got a little saucer and poured oil in it. But, so the skillet's been off or the burner has been off for about a minute. I'm gently buffing it with steel wool here, just so I get a nice, even, dull sheen on the surface here, because initially it was shiny. I want the whole surface to be a nice, uniform matte color or dull color. It's looking pretty good. Before I turn the burner on, I'm going to wipe the skillet out, just so we don't have any residual bits of steel wool in there. This is a clean paper towel. That was pretty good. Alright, burner back on. Yeah, initially was not going to film this because I already filmed a skillet seasoning video on the same exact skillet, frankly, and I figured it'd be redundant. But given the success that I'm seeing here, the tremendous deep black mirror sort of look, I figured I couldn't pass it up. I had to share this with you guys because I really think this is a far better skillet seasoning approach than I've seen in any other YouTube videos, and I've watched a lot. I watched a whole lot of YouTube videos on sanding skillets and re-seasoning them before I took my first skillet back in January and tore it down and smoothed it out. But none of those videos took the skillet all the way down to bare iron and then brought it all the way back to a gorgeous black finish like I'm doing right here. So I think there's some value to that. Because a friend of mine asked me to re-season some heirloom skillets, I figured I really need to do my homework and get good at this before I start messing with someone else's family heirloom and potentially do a disservice. Especially on a Griswold, because, I mean, seriously, it's a Griswold. Those are legendary skillets. One of these days I'll have to get one. Maybe when I get a raise. Thank you, coronavirus. Like I said, you gotta go fast and furious here. Alright, smoke's starting to dissipate. And the burner's coming off. Now we're going to dab some more oil on there. Fast and furious. Fire safety is obviously important. This paper towel is getting to the point where it'll start turning into char, and it'll burn indefinitely. If I leave it on the countertop, it will burn and potentially be a fire hazard. And so I've gone through what, 1, 2, 3, 4 bundles of paper towel. You know, just take a full sheet of paper towel and fold it up and give myself a little bit of padding. And I've gone through 4 of them, and I have a bowl of water in the sink. And when I'm done with one, I put it in there to completely quench it, so there's no risk of that taking off. Even with oven mitts, this is really hot. Oh man, I'm starting to see my reflection in that. It's like a black mirror, like an antique, in great condition, would look like. And the cool thing is that this is the starting point. All the seasoning of cooking meals is going to be built up upon this. It's got a great foundation to start with. Alright, I think this thing is, yeah. This one's charring out. It's smoking on its own. Out. I think I'm going to call it good. I'm going to let it cool down for a little bit longer, and then I'll buff it with the steel wool. And yeah, I think we'll call it at that. I'll take a picture of the finished result and post that in the video. Thank you all for watching. Really hope you've enjoyed it. Here, let's get a close-up real quick before I shut it down. Look at that, it's like a black mirror. Alright. That's enough of that. Thanks for watching, guys.